Good evening, and thank you for attending the County Executive's 2021 Budget Town Hall for District 4 with County Executive Johnny Olszewski Jr. and Chairman of the County Council, Julian Jones. I'm Pete Christkumis, the Director for the Baltimore County Executive's Office of Community Engagement, and in a moment, I will turn it over to Chairman Jones for brief remarks. Chairman Jones will then turn the meeting over to our County Executive, who will give a presentation on Baltimore County's 2021 budget. At the conclusion of the presentation, the County Executive will answer your budget-related questions. There are a few ground rules for those Q&A portion of the questions. First, I want to thank those who have submitted their questions in advance to the County Executive. He, one of his department heads, or the council member will answer as many of your budget-related questions as possible. For those who are watching through social media, you may submit your question in the comment section. If we cannot answer your question tonight, we will have your District 4 Outreach Coordinator, Kirk Mitchell, follow up with you. With that, it is my honor and privilege to introduce to you Chairman Julian Jones.
Thank you very much, Pete. And thank you, County Executive Olszewski, for choosing District 4 to be the first in a series of town hall meetings across Baltimore County. I'd like to thank all the citizens and partners throughout our community who joined us this evening. It is some very trying times that we have. However, tonight is a day where we can utilize this platform in inclement weather. And to be quite frank, we could not do it without being virtual because of the weather. So I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight. As always, we will do our best to answer all your questions. And this is the best that you can get in terms of local government. We're coming to you right into your homes and giving you an opportunity to ask questions. So again, thank you very much for joining us. I welcome the County Executive to District 4, who's no stranger to our district. He's been a tremendous partner with us. And we're just very proud of everything he's done. We've worked on so many issues of great importance to the community. And we want everybody to stay safe. And don't forget, register for the COVID vaccine if you haven't already done so. And on that note, it is with my honor and privilege to welcome our wonderful County Executive, Johnny Olszewski Jr. to District 4. County Executive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening to you and to all the residents, especially of District 4. This is your night, but to any resident of Baltimore County who's listening in tonight, we welcome you to tonight's town hall, and we thank you so much for joining us. It is a pleasure to be here alongside Councilman Jones, who has been a tremendous partner on the Baltimore County Council, and we are thrilled to join you, even if only virtually, as the councilman said. Probably worked out for the best because we knew we could forge ahead and not have to reschedule tonight with the weather. So I want you to know that we're also joined with just about every department in Baltimore County is represented tonight, almost all of whom are represented by either the director or the deputy director. Last year when we were in person, we were able to have tables set up where you could engage with them, but really this is just a continuation of them being accessible to you. I am thrilled to be working alongside these great departmental leaders, Councilman Jones, and all of you as we continue to build a better Baltimore County. Over the last 2 years, with your help and in partnership with Councilman Jones, we have truly set new standards for local government, and we've set a new and better way of doing things in Baltimore County. Last year, we convened and we were starting our town hall series under a very different set of circumstances. Working with you, working with the councilman and the county council, we had closed an $81 million inherited deficit. We had put the county's fiscal house in order. We had maintained our AAA bond rating. We were on much stronger financial footing, and we were positioned for so much progress. We had enacted unprecedented ethics and accountability reforms. We were pushing forward public data dashboards, bringing new levels of transparency and openness to county government. And we were set to build significantly upon our record funding for schools, along with investments across our communities. But then abruptly, the COVID-19 pandemic upended our entire way of life. And at the beginning of the pandemic, we were forced to work with the county council to cut about $100 million from our planned spending. So we passed a budget last year that focused on the essentials. We focused on education, public safety, and all the services that you as our residents depend on. And we also began preparing for this unprecedented crisis like none of us have ever seen before. Back in March of 2020, the county recorded our first ever case of COVID-19. We now have nearly 50,000 confirmed cases, and we've lost over 1,200 of our neighbors and loved ones. We know that countless residents have lost their jobs or their businesses, and that over 245,000 Baltimore County residents have filed unemployment claims in our jurisdiction. But within weeks, because we had such great partners like Councilman Jones, we were able to build a COVID-19 testing operation because we had such great departmental leaders like Dr. Branch in the health department, all of our departments. We've now done over 440,000 tests, free and without a doctor's note being required. We're doing significant PPE distribution, and we created a testing contact tracing operation. We've also seen and have stepped up to meet the immense needs out there in our communities, because we believe that local government has an obligation to meet those needs of our communities. And we are meeting those needs. For example, we've distributed over 13 million meals across Baltimore County in collaboration with our Baltimore County Public Schools and the Baltimore County Public Library. We're also doing that in partnership with the Maryland Food Bank and businesses like H&S Bakery and our local Baltimore County farms. We've stood up eviction prevention programs with over $10 million already spent to help over 900 households avoid eviction. We were the first jurisdiction in the state to use our local CARES money for this purpose. And again, thank you, Councilman Jones and the council for approving additional funding last night, over $20 million more, which is coming soon as a result of new federal stimulus dollars. We're closing the digital divide in our communities. We're providing 6 months of Comcast Internet Essentials to 11,000 households in Baltimore County. We created a program to help our low-income families pay for childcare. We're supporting those who have school-age children who've been also dealing with remote learning at home. We created a similar program for Baltimore County employees who also have school-age children. We're trying to do all that we can to help our neighbors, businesses, and residents alike get to the other side of this crisis. That's why we're providing millions of dollars to help restaurants and businesses stay open, and millions more to help them keep their staff and customers safe. In Baltimore County, we've processed over 1,200 grant applications across 6 different programs, totaling $19 million of support. About $9 million of that has gone to the restaurant industry. And through our small business reimbursement grant program, we've helped 300 businesses install equipment to prevent the spread of COVID-19. We're proud to have given out over $4 million as part of our small business relief program. Over 50% of all of our awards have been given to minority and women-owned firms, a fact that we are very proud of. And you know, this is credit to Director Howie and the Department of Economic and Workforce Development. This grant volume is about 20 times of our usual workload. And we've been able to process as efficiently as ever before without any additional staff resources. And now with the arrival of a COVID vaccine, we're starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel. Our first vaccine was given back on December 23rd. And we now have over 105,000 residents in Baltimore County have been vaccinated, including over 30,000 directly by our Department of Health. Baltimore County has consistently been a leader in the number of residents vaccinated among local jurisdictions. And we know that we have so much more to do, and that there are so many others out there still seeking a vaccine. So we ask for your patience, because we have continually received only a very limited number of vaccine doses. So while we are the most effective at getting this out, we just have not seen the volume to meet the need. So in the meantime, let's continue to do all that we can to stop the spread and save lives. Let's keep wearing our masks and keep social distancing. It is working. We're seeing it in our numbers, which are continuing to trend down. So thank you for keeping it up and doing the right thing as we fight this virus. And you know, even amid the crisis and the response to COVID-19, we've continued our work to improve our communities. We've taken significant strides to reform Baltimore County government and move our county forward. I'm so proud of what we've accomplished together in partnership with Chairman Jones and members of the County Council. In the 4th District, we've dedicated millions of dollars to improve our water and sewer system. We've invested over $9 million to complete a number of school construction and maintenance projects. We have over $45 million budgeted for the renovation of Woodlawn High School, which is now in the construction phase, in addition to a new turf field and a new track. We have $53 million budgeted for replacement of Deer Park Elementary School, and we have $36 million budgeted for the renovation and expansion at Scotts Branch Elementary School, which is currently in the design stage. We have currently completed 3 different traffic calming projects at Campfield Road, Deer Park Middle, and Delightway. And we've invested over $3.5 million at the Reisterstown Library for interior renovations and new furniture. We're currently conducting a feasibility study on the construction of a new pavilion and adding parking to the Gwynn Oak Park. And more recently, we partnered with the Baltimore Ravens to begin building a destination playground at Northwest Regional Park, a project that the councilman and I know we're both very excited about. That should be a lot of fun. We also recently announced the purchase of a 7.7 acre parcel for a community park directly next to the Randallstown Community Center. And in the year ahead, we'll be working with you to develop your thoughts and ideas for that site. And thanks to a partnership with Set the Captives Free, we're beginning a $1.4 million expansion of the Woodlawn Health Center, which is currently the county's busiest site. So in the near future, I also look forward to continuing our study of the Liberty Road corridor. We have also heard, I have heard, your calls for additional green space, grocery stores, and other investments. And we're glad to see that some of those priorities are coming to fruition, including our work to alleviate congestion and improve pedestrian and driver safety along Liberty Road. This spring, we'll be holding additional public meetings to finalize the action plan and continue implementing its recommendations. But I want you to know we remain committed to doing all we can to meet your needs, especially as it relates to the grocery store issue. I've heard that loud and clear, and we will talk about that more later tonight through your questions. But thank you for your partnership in this process, and I'm proud of all the work that we're driving together in District 4. You know, in our first 2 years across Baltimore County, we've provided back-to-back years of record funding for education, including over $240 million towards shovel-ready school construction projects, some of which we just reviewed. Coupled with state funding, these funds will allow us to complete what was the county's Schools for Our Future program and begin addressing our other long-term needs. But we needed state support to advance these projects, and so we're glad to see that the General Assembly, under the leadership of Speaker Jones, Baltimore County's own, as well as our delegates and senators in Baltimore County, have overridden the governor's veto of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, which is now also unlocking $462 million of school construction funding for Baltimore County under the Built to Learn Act. The Blueprint for Maryland's Future will help us pay for more teacher raises, make key investments inside the classroom, and ensure our students have all the resources they need to be successful. And as we continue to strengthen our schools, we're also working alongside BCPS and a nationally recognized consultant, Canon Designs, to develop a long-term plan to ensure that all of our school construction needs are met in the years ahead. Throughout that process and in collaboration with all of you, we will form a long-term plan to ensure that every child and every teacher for every family across Baltimore County has access to a world-class learning environment. And as we invest in our educational system, we'll also do all that we can to keep our community safe. And I'm very proud to report to you tonight that Baltimore County remains a safe place to live, work, and raise a family. Violent crime rates have been declining over the past year, continuing a years-long trend downward. So I want to thank Chief Hyatt and all of her team over at the Baltimore County Police Department. Last year at our town hall meeting, I shared our update to the crime fighting strategy for Baltimore County. That included enhanced data and analytics, increasing crime prevention efforts in our hotspots, and participating in the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. We are truly starting to see the benefits of having these measures put in place over the last year. This past summer, though, we also heard calls for justice across our state. And in Baltimore County, we answered that call, becoming the first jurisdiction in the region to take a major step forward. With the bipartisan Smart Policing Act, sponsored by Chairman Jones and with our full support, Baltimore County now has banned chokeholds. We require additional de-escalation and implicit bias training. We prevented officers with prior records of misconduct from serving in our department, and we codified many other reforms already underway. We also increased transparency with our police department, as we have with all of Baltimore County government, including data dashboards that track the use of force by and complaints against law enforcement officers. And we also implemented the county's first ever policy requiring the release of body-worn camera footage here in Baltimore County. Baltimore County is also tackling the opioid epidemic head-on. And as we continue to have the second highest number of overdose deaths in the state, we take it very seriously. And while we're grateful that we have not seen the dramatic spikes that other jurisdictions have seen during this pandemic, we continue to lose far too many of our loved ones to addiction. So in our first year, we hired the county's first ever opioid strategy coordinator. And now we're beginning to implement a comprehensive plan to end this epidemic. We are expanding harm reduction services like needle exchange programs and drug drop boxes. And we're also increasing access to treatment in Baltimore County, including our first ever treatment center in Owens Mills and another treatment center early in the planning stages. We're also partnering with Shepherd Pratt Hospital to develop a hub and spoke model to further enhance treatment options in Baltimore County. This effort will be focused on individuals with dually diagnosed disorders, both mental health and addiction, and we'll continue to look at all options to increase access to treatment. Residents also deserve a Baltimore County that is vibrant and livable for generations to come. So we must enact sustainable practices that protect our planet. That's why we're instilling a culture of sustainability throughout county government. Over the last year, we started developing our first ever greenhouse gas inventory and countywide climate action plan. We started renewing our glass recycling program, which was suspended back in 2013. And we're currently pursuing other new innovations. Our Eastern Sanitary Landfill will be converting methane gas to renewable energy, offsetting an estimated 21 million kilowatt hours of county electric usage annually. We're also committed to increasing our funding for recreation and parks and agricultural preservation. This year's capital budget that you all approved in November includes a record $35 million for bonds and recreations and parks. It also includes funding for agricultural preservation, which increased this year to $4 million. Just recently, I issued an executive order requiring all new county buildings to be built up to LEED standards. And we're partnering with BGE to install electrical vehicle charging stations on county properties. We'll continue to do all that we can to leave behind a more sustainable Baltimore County for our future generations. And our commitment to sustainability is also should be reflected in our approach to transportation. So we need to think bigger and more creatively about how we do that. So in Towson, we're beginning to launch the Towson Circulator later this year. It's an effort that we hope to be successful so that we can replicate in communities across Baltimore County. In Middle River, we received our second transit-oriented development designation at the site of the former aircraft manufacturing plant. It's a nearly 2 million square foot redevelopment project. And to reduce congestion, we're exploring other ways to move forward and imagine new possibilities in transportation, including microtransit and dense transit-oriented development in places where it makes sense. And of course, we remain committed to maintaining our existing roadways and keeping our residents safe, which is why we continue to have record funding for both road resurfacing and traffic calming projects. And improving our infrastructure is more than just about transportation, of course. The policies governing our water system, for example, are decades old and in need of reform. That's why we're partnering with Baltimore City on a comprehensive review, and I look forward to working with Mayor Scott to modernize these critical services. We also must ensure that we're planning for a more sustainable future. And one area that requires action is waste disposal. You might be surprised to know that trash going to our landfills has increased from 304 tons per day to over 1,400 tons per day. So in October, under the leadership of our County Administrative Officer, Stacy Rogers, we created a solid waste working group to develop a 5-year strategy for solid waste. And we issued a survey to gather input from residents about how to improve our trash recycling services. We also know that vibrant communities are strong communities. So we continue to make upstream investments, whether it's strengthening our neighborhood or supporting our young people in particular. Our expanded summer youth program is something we're very proud of, something we expanded amid a pandemic, giving more opportunities for hundreds of our young people. New experiences, skills, and connections. We had a 44% increase from the last year, from 194 to 280, and we look forward to growing this program further in the years ahead. We're also going forward with the construction of 2 new PAL centers in Baltimore County, and across Baltimore County, we're investing in our main streets. Towson, for example, last year was named a Maryland Main Street affiliate. Reisterstown has been named our county's second Maryland Main Street. Catonsville has become our first ever arts and entertainment district. And Trade Point Atlantic continues to be a vibrant breath of new life in Despair's Point. Looking ahead, we recognize there's more work to do, and we want to be especially focused on District 4 and along the Liberty Road corridor. So over the last 2 years, we've been conducting a study on improving quality of life in Liberty Road. We've held community meetings and conducted surveys to gather input. We've heard your calls for more green space in grocery stores and to lessen traffic and litter in your communities. I think we've established a strong action plan outlining the path forward, and we truly do remain committed to bringing more meaningful investments to your community. We'll also be leveraging our Small Business Resource Center and our economic development team to revitalize your district and your communities. And again, we'll prioritize in green space, starting with that 7.7 acre park next to the Randallstown Rec Center. So this spring, again, please look for additional public input meetings so that we hear your feedback to finalize that action plan, even as you give us feedback tonight. So thank you for your partnership in that progress, and we look forward to continuing to work together to make meaningful improvements to your community. I'm also proud that in Baltimore County, we're leading a more open, transparent, and accountable government than ever before. Together, we passed unprecedented ethics reform, including lobbying reform, a now successful charter amendment to establish public financing of local elections, and we created the county's first ever inspector general. Last year, we took a number of steps to heighten accountability and transparency in Baltimore County, launching BC Stat, our data-driven performance management system, creating data dashboards to increase accountability for county services, and creating Open Checkbook, which you can now go down and track county spending down to the contract level. We worked with the council to move work sessions later in the day. We created an Office of Community Engagement. You met Pete, the director, earlier tonight, and Kirk Mitchell is your District 4 representative. But we are ensuring that every district has a dedicated representative. We also created a 311 line that you can call for any number of needs in your community, and we'll continue doing all that we can to make Baltimore County more accessible and transparent, especially as we head into recovery from COVID-19. Speaking of recovery, after facing an unprecedented crisis like this, our region has to work together to pick up the pieces and rebuild. And as we rebuild, we must make a concerted effort to address the disparities that have always been there. We can't just rebuild our economy, we have to improve it. It must be a recovery that is holistic, and we need bold actions to strengthen our business community, support our residents, and address inequities in our communities. So when governments make the decision, for example, to enact restrictions, we made a commitment that we have to support those businesses when the time comes to reopen and rebuild. That means putting an emphasis on supporting small and independent businesses on our main streets and targeting our resources to businesses that were hit hardest, like restaurants, movie theaters, and event venues. We also know that some industries like hospitality and tourism have bore the brunt of the pandemic's economic impact. So we also will think creatively about how we can support them. For example, we plan to work with organizations like Visit Baltimore to develop a robust tourism strategy, highlighting our homegrown assets right here in Baltimore County. We're putting all the options on the table in the year ahead to support our businesses and our people, leveraging loan guarantees, investing in our main streets and business corridors, and expanding our small business service center. Recovery looks best when it's done in partnership and with an open dialogue. And we look forward to hearing from the business community and from you about ideas you'd like us to explore. Because when this pandemic ends, we resolve to come back stronger with family supporting jobs, expanding our Job Connector program, building upon College Promise so that we can have more free community college for our young people, and keep community college affordable for anyone else who wants it, with keeping our tuition low and frozen here in Baltimore County. As we continue recovery, the county will continue to help our residents meet their basic needs, with continued eviction prevention and food distribution efforts. And within county government, we are now beginning an efficiency audit to help us prioritize resources, sustain our recovery, and invest in the things that matter most. So in April, we'll be introducing the fiscal year 22 budget to the County Council, to Chairman Jones and his colleagues. The council will approve it by May 31st. And as you know, as you have in the last 2 years, you have an important role to play. So I look forward to hearing from you this evening about your priorities for this budget. Together, we can set our shared priorities, plan our recovery from this crisis, and ensure we're positioned to come out stronger than when we are on the other side of this thing. So with that, I'll begin to open the floor. We'll start with a few questions that have already come through in advance, but I'll turn things over to Pete, who will go over all the ways you can provide feedback before we start answering questions tonight. And we'll have answers from me. Chairman Jones will open the floor up for you, as well as I'm sure we'll pass some questions over to directors for additional feedback. So Pete.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Again, I want to thank those who submitted their questions in advance. The County Executive, like you just stated, will answer as many relevant questions as possible. Just a reminder for those watching through social media, you can ask your question in the comment section, and the County Executive will do his best to answer them live. If we cannot get to your question tonight, we will have Kirk Mitchell, the County Executive's District 4 Coordinator, for our community engagement team follow up with you. Mr. County Executive, would you like to begin with your first question?
Sure, thank you. And again, we do have a few pre-screened questions that we're going to go through first, and then our team will funnel the additional questions that come through.
County Executive?
Yes.
Let me call it audible, if you don't mind. I want to add on to my initial comment because I tell you, the presentation took me down memory lane, and I just think it's so, I mean, it seems like we are light years away from those early days when we were facing a budget shortfall, and it seems so monumental. I mean, we had this budget crisis, and you and I and the other council members and all the department heads, I mean, we were racking our head around how are we going to make up this shortfall. And that seemed so big. And it was, at the time, it was like one of the biggest tests that we thought any of us would have to go through. But now after COVID, and I'm looking at all the things we've done, and I'm looking at your leadership, and I'm thinking about the things that you had to face. I mean, these are challenges that no one could have imagined. I mean, we could have imagined them, but we certainly didn't think that we would be dealing with a global pandemic. And I was sitting back listening to the presentation, and I was thinking of how far we actually came from what we thought was such a big test. And you pass that test, and you continue to pass each and every challenge that comes in front of you. And I just wanted to make sure I put that on the table for everybody to see, because we are in uncharted territories, but you certainly make it look easy. And your leadership is really shown in everything you've done and continue to do, whether it be feeding people to, you guys name it, dealing with the state of emergency. So I wanted to get that out there because it was heavy on my mind, just looking at the memory lane, thinking back to where we've come from to where we are today, which is, who would have known? Go right ahead. I'm sorry.
No, well said, Mr. Chairman. We have come a long way, and it has been in a very short period of time, and it was crisis upon crisis. But thanks to partnerships with you and your colleagues in the council, we're in a much better spot where we can, I think about the future and not just keep progress we've made, but think about what's ahead. So thank you for your partnership, your leadership on the county council. So first, Helen has a question about grocery stores and fine dining on Liberty Road. So I wanted to, again, just reiterate the comments earlier that I hear you loud and clear. The county hears you. We are actually working on the study that we mentioned for Liberty Road, but also, after I give the councilman a chance to respond, if you'd like, I'm going to turn things over to the Department of Economic and Workforce Development, who I have said and charged them with finding particularly grocers, and they know that they've got the full support of my office. And if we need even additional resources to make deals work, I am that committed to finding opportunities along the corridor. So, Mr. Chairman, if you have thoughts on that question, and then from there, I'll turn things over to, I believe we have Director Howie on tonight, who can speak to his push to find grocers and or fine dining on Liberty Road.
Thank you very much. To be real brief, it has been a challenge. However, there are plans in the works, and there have been for another grocery store in Liberty Road. It's been on again and off again and on again, and I think right now it's back to on again. So we'll continue to do everything in our power to help that. We just had two restaurants open on Liberty Road. Both of them were, one is, what is it about crabs? Not just crab. And the other is like the crab, crusty crab or something like that down there at the library. So we just had two restaurants open, and it speaks to the strength of the Randallstown and the greater Randallstown community in terms of restaurants are closing all over the nation, and we're still getting new restaurants to come here to Liberty Road. So it speaks to the strength of our community. And on that note, I'll just pass it on to Director Howard.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. CE, I'll just add briefly that when it comes to the grocery store question, I can go back to even before I joined the county government, when the county executive told me right up front that will be one of my first priorities. And what was really encouraging is that there are individuals, there are companies out there who want to be here. And that's been encouraging. And as the chairman just stated, there's been some on again, off again conversations, but we are definitely in the on again phase right now. And it's really a matter of working out the details, working out the deal. But I'm excited with the prospect of a grocery store being named relatively soon. On the restaurant front, I'll just make a plug for whenever there's an opportunity to participate in our grant programs, our restaurant grant relief programs. Make sure that when you're going into your favorite local restaurant, you ask them, have they applied? Make sure that everybody understands what the opportunities are and that they take advantage of it. We want to do nothing more than to provide support for those restaurants that are already in place. We do not want them to close. So in addition to always trying to find the opportunity to bring in new restaurants, let's preserve the ones that we have, the ones that you really enjoy having with you. And whenever we collectively hear about opportunities to help provide support through these difficult times, that we encourage those owners to actually apply.
Thank you, Director Howie. Joan had a question about police hardware and our budget there, considering moving funds and shifting funds so that we could support teams of crisis management and de-escalation specialists to answer domestic violence and mental health 911 calls, referencing other jurisdictions that have done it excessively. Well, Joan, I want you to know that we are in fact actively exploring just that. And so maybe on this one, I'll turn it over to Chief Hyatt if she wants to just talk about some, your belief in, investing more in that. And then if Councilman Jones wants to add a few additional words from there, we can do that.
Thanks very much, sir. Good evening, everyone. Without question, Baltimore County Police Department feels very strongly about our mental health resources, and not just police resources, but the appropriate resources to respond to calls for service. We do currently have a co-responder model. So we do have trained clinicians that go out with police officers to calls. But like the county executive said, we are currently working on efforts to really ramp up our current ability to respond to these calls successfully and handle them effectively.
Thanks, Chief. Councilman, anything you want to add?
No, only thing I will add is, again, during the whole issue, during the police reform, we had the conversations around the crisis intervention unit. And I guess know that that's heavy on your heart. It's heavy on my heart. It's heavy on the chief's heart. And, we look forward to working it out so that we can increase the availability of that unit. But we already have that unit today, and we just need to ramp it up. So that's all.
Thank you. stay tuned. I know that we're actively working on this, and we do have a really good behavioral health response team. We just need to make sure that we are providing them with all the resources they need to be even more successful. Chief, while you're still here, maybe I'll just turn this one directly over to you. Frazier asks, what's being done to cut down on street racing at night and on the weekends? I can look out the window and see a lot of traffic, often on Dolefield Boulevard as a place to be race the areas between Red Run and Lakeshore Boulevard. So do you want to speak a little bit to the street racing issue?
Sure, sir. And I am also joined by some members of my team. So if either operations colonel or one of the precinct commanders want to jump in with any additional information, that's great. Right now, our precinct commanders are working together. So they're working across precinct boundaries and additionally working with other state and local partners to monitor some of the activity of some of these organized car racing groups. Through better coordinating our resources and communicating, we have been able to increase our presence in some of the areas where members of these groups tend to meet prior to doing street racing. And that really allows us to proactively discourage participants from being part of it. We also certainly make sure that when we are able to, we issue citations, safety repair orders, or other citations to individuals that are involved in this. We sometimes are able to come upon grant funding, which helps us with some of these initiatives. But traffic safety is something that is a significant priority to us. We are making proactive efforts to really deter some of the problematic and unsafe driving. It's certainly reckless. There are people that are very aggressive when they do it, and that's something that will continue to be a priority for us. Colonel, anything that you want to add to that?
Chief, you covered pretty much all of it, and I would just add that a lot of these organized groups go to great effort to make sure that they keep the time and location under wraps until right before they do it. So when we come upon the places that they meet prior to the event, it's a big deal for us, and we definitely try to deter Baltimore County, any of our precincts, and I know precincts 2, 3, and 4, and the Western Patrol Division are represented on the call. Those commanders do a great job of communicating and making sure that if a group moves from one location, we know some of the areas around the west side that these groups tend to like to congregate before they go and move and do the race. So it's just it is a cat and mouse game often, but and certainly they don't like to broadcast the stuff ahead of time because they know we're going to be there in force. So we know these things are dangerous. We don't want them taking place on our streets.
Thanks, Colonel. Frazier has a couple of questions. I'm going to try to get through them as quickly as we can. There's also a question that both Gail and Frazier had around trash. There's an issue of trash around Security Boulevard and Liberty Road. What can the community do to work with the county on these issues? And Gail also similarly asked, running to address the problem of trash on our streets and landscape. Gail also suggests looking at maybe a training educational component be added to the efforts of street cleaning. So Pete, do you want to talk about some of the efforts that we're doing in OCE in partnership with the community to try to address some of the concerns about trash?
Whenever we get a complaint, we go out and we investigate. I know we had a large illegal dump site in that area, and we were taking care of that, working with Public Works to keep that cleaned up and get that cleaned up. We haven't done that yet, but we're moving forward with that. So if there are specific locations of properties that people have concerns about, we will certainly investigate and follow up. Our process is to cite the individual. If they don't clean it up, we hire contractors to go in and clean up the site and put up in against the properties. So that's sort of our process for dealing with trash and derelict properties.
I forgot that it's the Pete and Pete show. Pete Gutwald is representing us as the director of PAI, which includes code enforcement. So wants to make sure that we're out there if people are being bad actors, and obviously helping with cleanups and partnerships with all his other departments. And then Pete Chris Kumis and OCE are also out there doing good work. So thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. I will piggyback off of Pete Gutwall. We work with OCE, works very well with PAI and DPW when we get those types of calls. And we actually have a decision memo that's coming up to you, sir, very soon, where OCE is going to partner with communities and go out between the months of April and October to help pick litter up along roadways and junk, trash, and debris that might have been dumped, as a community initiative to work closer with our community groups.
Thank you. The next question, and again, Councilman Jones, feel free to chime in at any point you want to add something. The next question, again from Frazier, was about walking safely around Windsor Mill and how do we get more sidewalks. I'm happy to let you know that we actually, in partnership with DPW, with Councilman Jones, last year we heard the calls here as well, and we actually put $1 million in for the first phase of a significant Windsor Mill project for sidewalks. This project, I believe, is for property acquisition. There are several additional phases. It's going to be a very expensive project, but we're trying to maintain our commitment to moving forward there. I think we have from DPW, I believe we have Tony Russell representing Director Deandra Walker tonight. If Tony, if you're on and want to speak to or confirm that I've said everything right tonight.
Yes, sir, you're correct. We're looking at the area. Highway design is looking at the area, as far as sidewalks, what needs to be put there to make things more safe.
Better to be right than wrong. So that's good. Thank you.
I'll add that, this is a project that's been ongoing on Windsor Mill Road that will extend from Windsor Mill and Woodlawn Drive all the way up to basically on the other side of the Beltway to the Corinthian. It'll be done in a couple of different phases. And I remember this being like the first project I took to our former county executive, Kevin Cabinet, and with the help of Delegate Burns and some other community leaders. And I remember County Executive Cabinet saying to me, okay, but this is going to be a lesson in terms of time it takes, in terms of how long it takes to do that. And here we are, I don't know how many years later, 6 years or something, and we're still working on it. So these things don't happen overnight. There's a long process. Even at the best of times, you're looking at probably 5 or 6 years easy in terms of land acquisition, engineering work, moving utilities. All of these things have to happen before we get down to actually putting blacktop on the road, curbs, sidewalk, and gutters. So I believe we are beyond the engineering work. We're now in the land acquisition, and we still have a few years to go. But the important thing is you have funded the monies necessary for us to move forward with the project, and one day it'll be done.
That's right, and that's what and I think that's why these are helpful conversations, so that it encourages us to continue the funding for future phases, so that we can get this project to completion. There's a question about community input in terms of what businesses come to the area, and concerns about 24-hour stores in particular. I don't know if this is better for Director Howie to take it first, or Director Lafferty over in planning to talk about our engagement process for community and zoning, or Ms. Mante, our Deputy Director, maybe you can speak if Steve is still has not been able to join us from that perspective.
Well, I can start with one aspect of the input. Part of the county executive's approach for coming out of this pandemic, as he said at the outset, not just whole, not just recovering, but coming out better than we were, is to get additional input. He's organized, he's structured a sub-cabinet process that we are working collectively as a team to gather even more input. So one way you'll be able to add input, in addition to the other Department of Planning exercise process that you're going through, is there'll be opportunities within the sub-cabinet recovery process to add input for the types of businesses, the types of recoveries that the community really wants to see. So that's one thing that will be coming up late February to mid-March timeframe. And I'll pass that to Mr.
And Mr. County Executive, I was able to make it tonight. Thank you.
So you're on double duty now. You're also doing the solid waste work group, I know. So
Yes, and I jumped off that a few minutes ago, but as Amy Mante, the deputy, can probably attest better than I, since she was division chief for community planning, we have regularly and continually engaged the community in issues that are around the development of more economic opportunities. They are difficult, and I think the question that was posed earlier about attracting fine dining and grocery stores sort of attests to that. We can impact or influence the zoning that's in place and work with developers and with potential interested parties and bringing them into a corridor. But a lot of it depends upon the community input that we get as to what people want to see in the corridor. And we've done a number of community plans. And in fact, there's been one recently in the Northwest Gateway. And if Amy can weigh in on that, since she was closer to that process, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Hi, I'm Amy Mante. I'm the Deputy Director for Planning. Leading into the community input piece of things, as we've worked over the last few years to update the Northwest Gateway Plan, we've reached out to the community and we've had a lot of input and cooperation, and we gathered a lot of good ideas from the public. One of the action items from that plan was the Liberty Road Design Review Panel area, which is a process that we are in the middle of. There's a public input meeting on March 9th at 6 o'clock, and the information is on our website about that. We've had an advisory committee working with us to look at some of the commercial shopping centers along Liberty Road. Some of the things that we heard from the community during the Northwest Gateway Plan was, nicer looking shopping centers, better lighting, better signage, of course, litter, more landscaping, bringing those features back into an area that maybe some of the shopping centers haven't been updated in a long time. So we're moving forward on that. And even in that small group, we've had a lot of good ideas, and we're looking for more ideas on March the 9th.
And if you don't mind, I'll just add in there. I'm extremely proud of our community, especially as it relates to community input in terms of making sure our community have the type of businesses that we are proud of. When I think about how many people applied for liquor stores, and I think about the Combined Community Advocacy Council under the leadership of Aaron Clement and other groups throughout the Liberty Road corridor, throughout our community, how many times they have campaigns, calls to action, and they write letters and they show up at the liquor board and they stop those liquor stores from opening before they ever get started. When I think about what's going on right now at the Golden Dragon, they want to sell the Golden Dragon and put a gas station with a 7-Eleven there. And I saw the outpouring of support from the community, and who stood up and came out and testified saying that that's not what we want. We don't want another gas station or 7-Eleven sitting there where the Golden Dragon is. So the community have been very, very vocal and very engaged. And whether it been, we talked earlier about the junkyard, the community made their voice very clear and very loud about what they would not stand for. So the community is very strong, and people have been very engaged in helping to shape our community and make it what it is today. So I just want to thank all the people, and I apologize if I missed anyone, but the community have been very engaged in keeping our community type of place that we all are proud of.
And I will echo your sentiments there, Mr. Chairman. Really lucky to have so many tremendous community advocates who are engaged, whether it's pushing back against, what they don't want to see, or coming out and being productive with the planning department and with others to actually be proactive about what they do want to see. So it's been really great to work with many great leaders that you just mentioned. Dr. Branch, this is going to come to you and HHS. I know you've got quite a contingent on tonight as well. Thank you. Last question from Fraser, and then I think there's a related question that I will also share. I'll just do both of them. This one is, how do we ensure older residents are getting registered for the vaccine, and how do we encourage them to get the vaccine? And then once you're done that, I've got another question from Linda about vaccinations that I'll pass to you.
Well, we are encouraging all our residents to get the vaccine. At this particular time, if there's anyone who is not able to register at the registry, by asking their family, friends, and neighbors, we're asking that you please call 311. If you can't get through on 311, or if you want to call a different number, you can call the COVID hotline for the Department of Health, and that's 410-887-3816. That's 410-887-3816. We have the Department of Aging who's calling out to many of our elderly and seniors, and they are helping to schedule them. And then we will also be assisting many of our residents with transportation to our clinics if that's a barrier for them. And we will soon have a plan that we'll be able to publicly announce that will talk about our homebound residents in addition to that. So we are working very closely with that community, and we are encouraging all, especially our seniors, and especially our seniors who are from our Black and Brown communities, to come out and get the vaccine.
Thanks,
County Executive, if you don't mind, can I just take a second to, I tell you, we are very, very fortunate here in Baltimore County under your leadership and under the leadership of Dr. Branch. Dr. Branch is, I'm telling you, the best there is. Dr. Branch and his team have been doing an absolutely fantastic job. And I just want to put that out there. We are so fortunate and happy to have you. And we know that the only thing that's stopping us from doing even more vaccines is the fact that we can't get our hands on the vaccine. But we are doing the very best with what we have. And on a related note, some people know that I put on a video myself getting the vaccine and my mother getting the vaccine. Well, my mother, 85 years old, got her second shot 2 days ago. And every day, every other hour, I'm calling her. How are you doing, Mom? How are you doing? My mother told me today, I feel as good as I ever felt. And I had no issues at all with that second shot. None. She said, matter of fact, none. So for those out there that's a little hesitant, my mother's 85. She took the second shot and no issues at all.
So related question on vaccinations, Dr. Branch, while we've got you moving with your team here. Question is, once more of the COVID vaccines become available, because as we just discussed, we're at the end of the supply chain. We're very good at delivering them. We just don't have enough doses. Will there be enough vaccinators in Baltimore County to send out mobile buses to give vaccinations to at-risk areas for those who might not be able to Pneumonia or Randallstown due to lack of transportation? And second question, also from Linda, are you willing to consider paying unskilled employees, paying unskilled, unemployed, and individuals to become COVID vaccinators?
So at this particular time, I can say to Linda, absolutely. We will be sending out folks into the community to be able to vaccinate the members of our community. Absolutely, there is no doubt. As soon as we have enough vaccine, we'll be going out. Actually, we'll be going out before that, because I'm really trying to get it into the arms of our Black and Brown community members. As it relates to the vaccinators, we will be utilizing a whole plethora vaccinators. And at this particular time, we've got a goodly number, especially with our fire department and especially with the state providing us with the vaccinators. In the event when we're going out to the communities and we're working in the churches and stuff like that, if we need more vaccinators, we will definitely be using vaccinators in the community.
And just to double down, Dr. Branch and I are working closely to make sure that we have whatever sort of mobile units we need ultimately once we have to go in and vaccinate every part of our community. I'm really proud of his efforts at our second site at the Reynoldstown Community Center. We partnered with a lot of our faith leaders our first day there to share the message, Black and brown communities, about the safety and the efficacy of the vaccine. And so, Dr. Branch, and I want to applaud you and your efforts because you recognize that public health is about going where people are, and you've been doing that with your teams in this day. Thank you. Another question from Aaron about, this is about program open space fees. And this is, talks about that county law requires when new developments are proposed, the open space needs of residents are balanced against the open space needs of new residents. There was some question about the current fee structure in Baltimore County and specifically about improvements that are needed at their neighborhood park at Powhatan Park. So there's a question about if Baltimore County was looking at changing or fixing the open space law and allowing for resources to improve land and open space in communities like Aaron's in Baltimore County. I will first say that we are, in fact, actively looking at these issues, and we'll be updating the Baltimore County open space process. I don't know if it's planning or someone else we want to pass that to. And additionally, we're happy to, through this upcoming year, specifically look at Powhatan Park and there. So please, follow up with us about specific, us and Councilman Jones on specific needs there so that we can try to make sure that we address those in the year.
Mr. County Executive, if I may, the county has stepped in to help at the Powhatan Park area. There was a significant challenge because of the absence of an underground pipe that caused a collapse after work was done with the neighborhood and working with neighbor space. So the county has stepped in and provided support to address that issue so the work can continue. We are and have been looking at, really under Pete Gutwald's leadership, at the open space fee, and I believe something is coming forward to you for consideration. Once that has been addressed, then we will be continuing our examination of the open space waiver fee process to ensure that really there's adequate funds to address the lack of open space in so many communities, and also to make sure the process is fair and equitable.
And if you don't mind, I'll be brief, just for those that may or may not know. First of all, the Powhatan Park is an excellent example of where the community came together, working with neighbor space, and they saw a dilapidated piece of property which had literally, I kid you not, a tractor. Like a tractor trailer. The front of the tractor was sitting there in the middle of this field, sitting in the middle of this lot, stuck there for quite some time. And anyway, all of that got cleaned up. As it relates to the open space fees, when a developer builds a development, for those that may not know, they have to provide a certain amount of open space in that development. But they can also choose to pay a fine or a fee instead of this providing the space. That fee goes into a pot where we utilize that money. Some of that money goes to neighbor space, some of that money goes to the county, and we use those monies in addition to what we already put into the budget to fix other parks and provide other green space throughout Baltimore County.
Thank you, guys. Next, Shirley had a question about seniors and vaccination. There are still a lot of seniors who have not received vaccines and can't find a way to sign up. I just want to reiterate, Shirley, what Dr. Branch said. In addition to our online registry, if you have any issues with connectivity or navigating that, please just call 311, and we are happy to make sure that you or any other seniors are able to get on our vaccination registry. We actually have several thousand more seniors, even in that 1A category above age 75, than we do doses, but we are working diligently to support them and get them through that process. I would also encourage anyone listening tonight, if you have any relationship with your health provider, to check with them to see if they have any distribution lists for vaccinations, and then also start checking on both the Baltimore City Convention Center site as well as the Prince George's Six Flags site, as the state has set up 2 mass vaccination sites that are open to anyone in the state. They have
Enter the event panelist numeric password.
about body cameras.
This
I don't know
meeting
that I
is
have the
being
name,
recorded.
but question about the control of them and anything that can be done to ensure that they remain on or on in terms of when there are interactions with the public.
We have very specific policies which guide our police officers with the wearing of body-worn cameras. We also have a very specific policy in terms of body-worn camera release. Actually, that's a policy that was implemented, created with some input from stakeholders in the community, and was implemented over the last year. So body-worn cameras are something that I think that we can really all agree have been really monumental in law enforcement for our officers to wear, and they will continue to wear them. We're also looking at some places where we will be doing some expansions of our body-worn camera program. But as for when officers wear them, our officers are provided with policies, trained on the policies, and our expectation is that they follow those policies in terms of when they activate their cameras.
Yeah, and just a reminder that working with Chief Hyatt and the police department, we were able to create and implement the county's first ever actual policy. So there's something in writing about both the use of it and also the release of video footage. So thank you for the question there. We have a question from Ricardo, who is a community organizer working with the immigrant community, and talks about challenges with barriers on lack of access to language barriers, and wondering about resources for bilingual staff to help people navigate some of the processes out there. I will say that we are working towards that issue, Ricardo. We have the Office of Community Engagement is working on it, along with Elizabeth Sachs, who heads our government reform and strategic initiatives. We've set up a Latinx advisory group. We have some bilingual staff on OCE. We are also trying to produce, Terry mentioned some of the eviction prevention work. We're trying to put those documents out in multiple languages. But Pete, Chris Kumis, or anyone else, if you want to chime in terms of the work there, please feel free to chime in as well.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Yes, our District 6 Outreach Coordinator, Gabby Slocum, is the individual that works with the Latinx communities and the bilingual, helps with translation with a lot of, things that HHS is doing with COVID right now. So if you would like to reach out to Gabby directly, you can email her at d6outreach@baltimorecountymd.gov or call 410-887-2450, and they will get you to Gabby.
Great, thank you. So I have a question from Deanna about recreational dance returning to the studio. So I think Director Rosalind Johnson from Rec and Parks may be on. I don't know. I'm guessing this might be rec and parks, but also as opposed to private institutions. So Director Johnson, I know that we are monitoring the COVID metrics very closely, and they've been encouraging lately. And just wanted to see if you had thoughts on recreational dance return to studio.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Excellent question. The answer really for us is not soon enough, but we want to make sure when we do open up that it's safe for everyone. So we are constantly in consultation with our county's health officer, the amazing Dr. Branch. But we also have 140 plus sites that are in schools that we're unable to get into now. So until schools really reopen, that won't be a fair and equitable practice. I'm happy to say, though, that we meet with schools every week to discuss reopening plan. And so we are working on it. I know it's not soon enough for everyone, but as soon as it's safe and everyone has equal access, we will certainly start to open up our dance programs, as well as the rest of our programs, cheer, and all the amazing programs that we have throughout the county.
Thank you, Director Johnson. Appreciate that. Christina has another question for us tonight about ensuring minority business participation on contracts and future RFPs if there's a waiver allowed. And Christina, I don't know if our administrative officer has made it back on, but we actually are currently finalizing the county's disparity study on those very issues about minority participation in our procurement and award practices. And I am fully committed to doing all that we can to ensure that there is robust minority participation in finding opportunities with partnering with Baltimore County. So I know I mentioned that our grant program was all of our grants have been over half to women and minority owned businesses. And we want to make sure that all of our practices follow that as well. I don't know if there's anyone else on the call that wants to chime in. Again, I know that County Administrator Rogers is really leading that work, and so we can also follow up with you as well.
Yes, Mr. County Executive, I'll also add that as you know, the county is doing a very good job, and I know that the Chief Administrative Officer, Stacy Rogers, is on it and will come out with some additional recommendations. But also, we have been doing our job in terms of when large projects come before the county council. And I think about some of the things we did down there at Trade Front Atlantic, where I was able to ensure that we increase the number of minority and women participation. And so we've been doing that, and we continue to do that on some of the larger processes or some of the larger projects that come before the council. And it's also refreshing to know that under your leadership and with Stacy Rogers, we're going to look at all of our procurement processes to make sure that we're being fair and equitable to everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, the Procurement Commission is another really important step that we're taking to reform our practices. So thank you for that. I think there was a question about educator vaccinations, and we did work with the governor to move teachers up to 1B for that. There was a question about lack of funding for the Healthy School Act. I'm not sure I have enough information there to answer that question. So we will have our Office of Community Engagement follow up on that one. Devon asks a question about salt box stations throughout city corners. Is that something the county could do as well? I actually have been watching the new art that has been springing up on these boxes that have been really interesting lately. Seems to be capturing the imagination of social media lately, but it's a question probably for our Department of Public Works regarding salt distribution generally.
Yeah, it's definitely something we can look into. I've known we've done it, but it's been maybe 25 years that we've actually had salt boxes out, and it's just been an issue, you know, of load, who's going to put the salt in the box and where the boxes are going to be located. But it's definitely something we can look into.
Okay, And Devon, I think if you didn't already, if you just want to provide your information, at least your contact, email or phone, we're happy to follow up with you as well on that issue. So thank you, Tony. I know you've been busy with your crews, speaking of salting the roadways and ensuring that they're passable and safe out there. So thank you for all that you're doing to lead those efforts along with Director Walker and the Public Works Department. I think this is our last one on Facebook, also from Devon. Last summer, Pikesville and Randallstown had some concerns about car break-ins. Can we have the police start trolling periodically through those neighborhoods, or what does it take to have that? So, Chief, you want to speak to precinct engagement and how residents can ask for sort of patrols and work with you all on those types of concerns?
Absolutely, sir. And when we see those patterns start to arise, we immediately deploy into those areas very heavily. But on the average day, we have plenty of patrols that are going through those areas. Our precinct commanders, for example, right now tonight we have several of them on the west side who work together. Every week we have a weekly crime meeting called our ComStat meeting, where we discuss any types of patterns and trends with crime, and we adjust our deployment accordingly. But in the event that anyone does have any specific concerns, please reach out to your precinct commanders. If you go onto our website, you can get direct information on how to reach them. And certainly, if you have any concerns, we definitely do want to know about them.
Thank you, Chief. Councilman, before I conclude, do you have any concluding thoughts tonight?
Just that I think it's been a wonderful opportunity for the citizens to get their questions answered. I certainly appreciate all the participation from yourself on down the line to all the department heads, as well as all the citizens who chose to tune in tonight. And I look forward to representing you and representing the citizens and doing everything I can to make the quality of life better here in the District 4 and Baltimore County as a whole.
And I'll just thank you again, Councilman Jones, for your partnership on the council. Very pleased to be working alongside you in District 4 and across our great county to deliver for the residents we serve together. So thanks to all of you for listening in tonight, for sharing your thoughts and your questions with us. As I mentioned, this is Town Hall 1 of 7. We look forward to talking to all 7 council districts as we develop our budget process in the months ahead. But as always, stay connected with us. Email us, talk to us. We want to be accessible to you. So thank you again to Council Chairman Jones, to all of the team members who set up tonight, as well as all the department leads who were here to answer questions. So with that, I will wish everyone a safe and good evening. Take care out there. I think we're expecting a little bit more snow, Tony. So tomorrow morning, probably over tonight, and tomorrow morning we'll be at it again. So please take care of yourselves and each other. Wear a mask. Wash your hands, keep your distance, and get a vaccine when you can. So thanks you again, everyone. It's an honor and pleasure to serve as your county executive, and we'll see you all soon. Take care.